Good evening. You're watching the news at 7:30 on ATV. I'm Raymond Yeung.
And I'm Edna Tse. Here's a look at tonight's top stories.
Chief Executive expresses concern about fate of ATV ahead of visit to Beijing.
Police say less than $5 million from missing security van cash turned in so far.
More violent protests in U.S. after black man gunned down by police in Missouri.
Chief Executive Raymond Yeung says the government is closely monitoring the situation at ATV, which still hasn't paid its employees their November wages.
Yeung was speaking on his way to Beijing, where he will discuss political reform with mainland officials. Court-appointed accountants from Deloitte China are trying to solve the crisis at ATV by looking for a white knight, an investor willing to put much-needed funds into the company. They warned yesterday of a worst-case scenario, where if the company is unable to pay staff their due wages and the news department stops operating, ATV could lose its free-to-air license. That would lead to the collapse of the station, as no investor would be willing to step in. The decision on whether to renew ATV's license when it expires at the end of next year is already overdue, and it's now up to Chief Executive Raymond Yeung and his cabinet to decide. He was asked about it before he left for Beijing this morning. We have been closely monitoring the license renewal issue. If there are any problems, we will handle it with the relevant mechanism, legislation and policy, Yeung replied. Yeung said the Communications Authority has a certain role to play, but did not confirm reports that it has already recommended the license should not be renewed. He also gave an assurance the Labor Department will do its part to protect the rights of employees regarding the pay issue. The chief executive, who is on his annual duty visit to the capital, said the focus of his trip will be to discuss Hong Kong's constitutional development with Beijing leaders. He once again urged lawmakers to approve the final political reform package when it's presented to LegCo. While the government has the majority support of the pro-establishment camp, their pan-democratic colleagues hold just enough seats to veto the proposal, which need 2/3 approval from the 70 legislators. On a separate issue, Yeung noted the overwhelming response for a new batch of 2,160 homes under the home ownership scheme, which was revived after 11 years. More than 38,000 forms were handed out on Tuesday alone, even though applications only start next week. Yeung said he's not surprised with the strong response for subsidized housing, as many have been priced out of a home in the private market. He admitted it will be a challenging task to keep up the supply of HOS flats, particularly with the search for spare land. But he's confident that his government can solve Hong Kong's housing shortage step by step. Less than $5 million has been returned from the $15 million that went missing after it fell off the back of an armored van yesterday.
Police say anyone keeping the money they picked up is breaking the law. Arthur Urquiola reports.
Plainclothes police were out along Gloucester Road this afternoon, a day after some $15 million was snapped up by motorists and passers-by after it fell off the back of an armored vehicle. The officers questioned people in nearby buildings, hoping to recover some of the missing cash. Among those questioned were staff at a nearby car park, who said security camera footage wasn't taken away. After dozens made a grab for the cash as it fluttered across the road, reality set in today. Police warned that anyone who helped themselves to the bundles of $500 notes were committing a crime. Millions of dollars were returned throughout the day by dozens of people who had a change of heart. Bank of China, which hired G4S to transport the money, said today that the security firm was investigating the matter and had taken steps to prevent something like this from happening again. It added that G4S had apologized and will be liable for any cash that isn't recovered. The firm said it was carrying out an internal probe and that a problem was found with the left door of the van. It said there were 3 guards in the van, but in line with its security procedures, they were not in the area where the money is kept. The van was carrying some $525 million cash when 2 boxes, each containing $17.5 million, fell out onto the road. About $20 million was recovered yesterday. It's another embarrassing mistake for the British security firm, which has been plagued by scandals over the past few years. Arthur Ricchiola, ATV News.
A dozen people from Occupy movement offshoots were arrested overnight during violent pro-democracy protests in Mongkok.
And today, pop singers joined the pro-democracy campaign by singing Christmas carols laced with political messages.
Christmas is in the air. While Hong Kongers had to put up with damp and gloomy conditions on Christmas Day, two pop singers tried to brighten up people's spirits by singing carols in busy Causeway Bay. Denise Ho and Anthony Wong, as well as other members of the pro-democracy group Hong Kong Shield, said they were reminding the public not to forget the spirit of the so-called umbrella movement during the festive season. Some supporters turned up with yellow umbrellas. The performance was briefly interrupted when security guards from a nearby shopping center complained to the police. The troupe also performed in Mongkok and Admiralty, two main bases for the Occupy sit-ins, which blocked traffic for 2.5 months. The government should be serving the people rather than the people obeying instructions from the government, Ho insisted. They then made their way to Chinese University in Sha Tin to join hundreds who braved the rain to attend a pro-democracy concert. The leaders of scholarism and the Federation of Students were among them. The venue is also where students kicked off their strike in September, ahead of the Occupy protests. But splinter groups of the movement held less peaceful protests last night. Hundreds gathered on the streets of Mongkok after 9 p.m. and claimed to be doing Christmas shopping. They heckled minibus drivers belonging to the group that filed an injunction to end the road blockades. Things turned violent after midnight when they stormed roads and tried to block traffic. Police used batons and pepper spray to control the mob. 12 protesters aged between 13 and 43 were arrested for allegedly assaulting officers and criminal damage.
Children from broken cross-border families are calling on the government to increase the number of one-way permits.
In other local news, protesters are demanding the release of mainland dissident Liu Xiaobo. Alison Chan reports.
While many people across the city spent the day celebrating Christmas, some pro-democracy activists decided to hold a protest. About 20 members of the Hong Kong Alliance in support of patriotic democratic movements of China and the Professional Teachers Union marched from Western Police Station to the liaison office in Saiwan this afternoon. They demanded the release of dissident and Nobel Peace Laureate Liu Xiaobo, who has been in jail for 5 years for subversion. The protesters also want the central government to release Liu's wife Liu Xia, who has been put under house arrest since 2010. In another protest led by members of the Society for Community Organization, children from single-parent cross-border families marched from the Statue Square to Government House. They accused the government of ignoring their calls to grant one-way permits to mainland mothers whose children have been abandoned by their Hong Kong fathers. The group urged the government to increase the permits quotas so cross-border families can reunite as soon as possible. There was a surprise visit at the hostel for the elderly this afternoon. Volunteers from concerned groups against elderly abuse played games with the residents and gave them Chinese lucky bags. This 86-year-old woman, who's been living in the home for 15 years, said she wouldn't be celebrating if the volunteers didn't come. The group wants to raise awareness about social problems such as the wealth gap. Alison Chan, ATV News.
Mainland media reports say dangerous levels of antibiotics have been discovered in major rivers.
What's alarming authorities most is that the polluted rivers are also sources of drinking water. According to a CCTV report, water samples collected from major rivers, including the Huangpu and Yangtze, contained several types of antibiotics. The most severe contamination was in the Guangzhou section of the Pearl River, where levels were above European safety standards. Drinking water is sourced from the affected rivers. Investigators also say water samples taken from Nanjing contain antibiotics. Reporters investigating the contamination looked into water discharged from several antibiotics factories. They found that polluted water pumped from the Shandong Lukang Pharmaceutical Company contained a high concentration of antibiotics, up to 10,000 times acceptable levels. The plant has also been hiring people to transport and tip wastewater into nearby rivers to save sewage discharge fees. This led to untreated sewage being dumped into rivers. Under mainland environmental laws, companies must properly treat sewage before it leaves the factory, and judging by Lukang's actions, it has broken the rules. Experts say humans will become resistant to antibiotics if they consume the polluted water over a long period. Overseas, protests have erupted in the U.S. state of Missouri again after a white policeman shot dead a young black man.
But authorities insist the incident is in no way reminiscent of the police killing of a black teen in nearby Ferguson. Joyce Wu reports.
Tension between police and the black community in the U.S. seems to be reaching boiling point again. Demonstrators in St. Louis, Missouri clashed with law enforcers after a policeman shot dead a black teenager close to where another black youth was killed in summer, sparking nationwide protests. More than 100 people gathered at the scene in Berkeley, St. Louis after the incident and threw bricks and fireworks at police. 4 people were arrested. Police said the black teen who was fatally shot, 18-year-old Antonio Martin, pointed a gun at police officers at a petrol station.
The individual that is going to have the firearm, he backed away to the east just for a few steps, turned back around. The officer started engaging him in conversation again, and then the individual produced a pistol with his arm straight out, pointing at the officer from kind of across the hood of the police car. At that point, the officer produced his service weapon and fired what we think at this point is 3 shots.
Police released a surveillance video from the gas station, edited to end just before the shooting. The officer who fired the fatal shot had been given a body camera, but was not wearing it at the time of the shooting. The dashboard camera on his car was also off for unknown reasons.
We do not believe that there was any shots fired from the suspect. The suspect was armed with a 9mm high point.
Berkeley is just 3 kilometers from Ferguson, where 18-year-old Michael Brown was shot dead by a white officer in August. For weeks, there have been widespread protests against what many see as police brutality. But authorities were quick to warn against people drawing comparisons between the 2 incidents.
I had the opportunity last evening to review the video of the incident. And what I saw in this incident is not what people portray. This is not a policeman in the city of Berkeley, half-cocked, going out, and as we say, you know, Black Lives Matter. This was not the case. This is, you couldn't even compare this with Ferguson or the Gardner case in New York. Everybody don't die the same. Some people die because the policeman initiated. Some other people die, wait a minute, hold up. Some people die because they initiated. And at this point, our review indicates that the police did not initiate this, like Ferguson.
Others agree that the Berkeley police are justified.
I understand the hurt and the pain, and I'm angry too. But I have to tell the truth. In this situation, there is a young man who illegally possessed a gun, and that is against state law.
He had a weapon. He knew his choices. It was just, you take your choices, and that's what you get.
The officer, who has not been identified, has been put on administrative leave. Joyce Wu, ATV News.
Still to come on ATV's main news. Pope preaches peace while Barack Obama justifies war in annual Christmas messages.
Boxer Amir Khan visits Pakistan to help rebuild school attacked by Taliban.
wishes come true. ATV wishes you a Merry Christmas.
Use your time wisely. Make every hour of every day count. Discover the real meaning of life on Hour of Power, every Sunday morning at 9.
Want to discover the latest trends in Japan? Learn Japanese and feel the pulse of the vibrant culture at JP Time TV, Sunday night at 6:25.
Game on. Game on.
The twin sisters, they're dating the same man.
No, I want to eat, but I need your phone number first.
You go get the drinks and I'll meet you at the bar.
What the hell?
Hey.
What's going on?
Let me explain.
Stop. You've been playing me this whole time?
Will they find their true love? Double wedding, tomorrow night at 9.
The selection of the chief executive by universal suffrage in 2017 will be a milestone in Hong Kong's constitutional development.
According to Article 45 of the Basic Law, a broadly representative nominating committee will nominate candidates. Then all voters will elect the chief executive through one person, one vote. Finally, there is appointment by the Central People's Government.
Following these steps, we can all elect our chief executive in 2017.
Gourmet checkpoint. 4 celebrities battling for the MasterChef crown. Taking challenge to make delicacies. That needs enthusiasm, but also techniques. Who can stay and who's going home? This competition, only talent can survive. Celebrity MasterChef, tonight at 8:30.
Local food fanatics marked Christmas Day by battling for bargains at the annual food festival.
Meanwhile, thousands decided to spend their holiday outside Hong Kong. Alison Chan reports.
It's Christmas Day and many Hong Kongers are spending the holiday somewhere else. The airport was packed with people soaking up the holiday spirits early this morning. Travelers, tour groups and long queues filled the departures hall where the mood was merry. This woman said she's happy to spend her holiday in Taiwan with 16 of her family members and it's convenient to just go across the strait. This man said it's worth traveling to Japan with the yen worth so little at the moment. Some are also going there for a white Christmas. I'm excited to build my first snowman in Hokkaido, said this girl. This year, despite an increase in package tour prices, many people haven't been put off spending their holiday overseas. For those who have, many spent today at the annual food festival. Food lovers poured through the doors when the fair opened at 10 a.m. at the Hong Kong Convention and Exhibition Centre. Inside, they were treated to a huge variety of mouth-watering morsels, beverages and other delights. One of the highlights was the lobster grabbing contest, where seafood fans had 30 seconds to snatch as many as they could for $1. But this man, who had been lining up since 8 o'clock last night, was disappointed that he only managed to bag 3 lobsters. It's still a good deal, but I expected to get at least 7, he said. Many people who wanted to catch up their last-minute Christmas shopping were also attracted by a stall selling Taiwanese 7-head abalones for just $1 each. But other vendors weren't too concerned that the fair's extreme bargains would steal their customers away. This seller was optimistic about sales at his booth, which offers different food products. Starting from today, the 5-day event is open from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m., but will close 2 hours earlier on the last day. Alison Chan, ETV News.
All across the globe, Christmas Day was ushered in with festive celebrations.
At the Vatican, the Pope addressed thousands with a service at St. Peter's Basilica. Arthur Urquiola reports.
Pope Francis welcomed Christmas with midnight mass at the Vatican, where he addressed the world's 1.2 billion Catholics.
Cari fratelli e sorelle,
In his address, he said it was a time to remember that God's message of peace is stronger than darkness and corruption. Thousands were at St. Peter's Basilica, and for those who could not get in, video screens were set up outside the square. There were several midnight masses held across the globe. Thousands of pilgrims gathered at the Church of the Nativity in the Palestinian town of Bethlehem. Among them was Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. Syrian Christians were at churches praying for peace and safety in their country that has been enduring a Western-backed war since 2011. While Christmas is said to be a time to celebrate peace, U.S. President Barack Obama and his wife Michelle used their annual address to pay tribute to U.S. troops fighting wars around the world.
We hope that this holiday season will be a chance for us to live out that message, to bridge our differences and lift up our family, friends, and neighbors, and to reconnect with the values that bind us together. And as a country, that also means celebrating and honoring those who have served and sacrificed for all of us, our troops, veterans, and their families.
In just a few days, our combat mission in Afghanistan will be over. Our longest war will come to a responsible end. And that gives us an opportunity to step back and reflect upon all that these families have given us. We're able to gather with family and friends because our troops are willing to hug theirs goodbye and step forward to serve.
As Santa Claus made his way across the globe delivering presents, the U.S. Defense Agency NORAD kept close watch, a tradition dating back some 6 decades.
It's the most efficient route taking into account the winds that are out there. He's passed over North Korea, over the Great Wall, and he's on his way to Beijing as we speak, and he's delivered over 115 billion packages to good little boys and girls around the world.
Residents in the Mexican city of Oaxaca were getting back to their roots with their annual Radish Festival, where gardeners and artists come together. Crowds gather there to watch artists carve intricate designs, which for more than a century have reflected all sorts of themes, such as religion and politics. In Russia, celebrations turned fishy when dozens of frozen fish and bits of seaweed were discovered trapped inside the ice used to build a massive ice maze to usher in the holidays. Officials said the ice for the maze was taken from a nearby lake that had frozen over. While many cities are celebrating a white Christmas, things are different at Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia, where hundreds gathered for sun and surf.
It doesn't feel like Christmas at all, to be honest. It took a long time for us to feel Christmassy, but, you know, we'll still give it a go.
It definitely feels strange, but I'm getting used to it as the morning goes on. Christmas in Bondi.
Despite tourists having some trouble getting used to the change in scenery for the holiday season, many beachgoers sported Santa hats to get into the festive spirit. Arthur Urquiola, ATV News.
Time now for sports with Bo Lang.
So what do you have for us tonight, Bo?
We start with boxing charity. Boxer Amir Khan is in Pakistan to help the victims of an army school attack in Peshawar. British boxer Amir Khan has arrived in Pakistan to help rebuild a school where 141 people, most of them children, were killed by Taliban suicide attackers.
I've travelled to Pakistan despite security threats to prove that sport and education is the way forward. I'm willing to offer the government of Pakistan my support and the stakeholders. If they need any help, I'm here for them. I want to rebuild the damaged school and help fight against terrorism. The
28-year-old, whose parents were born in Pakistan, has also donated a pair of shorts worth $47,000 to help pay for the school to be rebuilt. He wore the shorts, which have a waistband made from 24-karat gold thread, in his victory against American Devon Alexander earlier this month. Khan retained his WBC silver welterweight title by winning the Las Vegas bout. British and German soldiers in Afghanistan commemorated the Christmas truce with a football match. This time the match was played in a different war zone, where there are no signs of a truce between international soldiers and the Taliban. In 1914, British and German troops met in no man's land after months of killing to sing carols, exchange gifts and play a game of football.
German soldiers and British soldiers for a moment forgot the brutality of war, and humanity triumphed and goodwill came to the fore as soldiers came out of the trenches and met each other on no man's land.
And victory went to the British, who won the friendly 3-0. Finally, Santa Claus ditched his sleigh and brought festive cheer by water skis in Virginia. A jet skiing Grinch also made an appearance in the annual spectacle, as well as elves, Frosty the Snowman in a dinghy, and reindeers. Although it was a wet and dreary day, it didn't dampen the festive mood of the crowds huddled to watch the event. A look at the weather before we go. It was a cloudy Christmas day with occasional rain. Temperatures range from 15.3 to 19.1 degrees, while the relative humidity was between 57 and 92%. Winds were fresh coming in from the east, occasionally strong offshore and on high ground. Let's check the ultraviolet reading. The maximum recorded for the day was 2. Tomorrow's UV index will be around 2 as well. Now for a look at the weather in the region. A ridge of high pressure over southeastern China is bringing a strong easterly airstream to the coast of Guangdong. And now the satellite images. Broad cloud bands are covering the coast of southern China and the northern part of the South China Sea. Here's what we can expect over the next few days. It's going to be a wet and grey Boxing Day. Temperatures will range from 14 to 17 degrees. More rainy weather over the weekend and chilly mornings next week. Here are the latest pollution readings under the Air Quality Health Index. General stations are at 4 to 5, meaning the health risk is moderate. Roadside levels are at 5 to 7 and the health risk is moderate to high. Finally, here's the weather around the world.
And some main news for Christmas Day. We'll have an update in 1 hour. I'm Edna Tse.
I'm Bo Leung.
And I'm Raymond Yeung. Thanks for watching ATV. From everyone here at the English News Department, we wish you a very Merry Christmas. We'll leave you now with some festive sights and sounds from Victoria Harbour. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Coming up, Heavenly Haven. '14 Christmas Special. 3 brilliant masters of Chinese art take you into an unforgettable and inspirational soul spa. Blending Chinese orchestra, calligraphy, and paintings naturally. Hong Kong Chinese Orchestra brings the music for tranquility of mind. Intoxicating Nature, tonight at 9:05. Memories of the Century. As the world's greatest pop band, the Beatles have influenced generations of people.
So the real difference was that we decided to write our own stuff.
It went through your body, right around. They were the best rock band on the planet at that very time. I've always said that.
Through rare interview footage, we'll see how these young men became the Beatles, becoming the Beatles, Saturday night at 10. Culture Checkpoint. With the dramatic pace of media reform.
It was on the 20th of August 2012, and said 48 years and 20 days of censorship is gone.
Exiled media groups are returning. How free can Myanmar's media and press be in the future? The New Myanmar, Tuesday night at 8:30. Korean Hour. Husband and wife can be intimate lovers, but also quarrelsome foes. This Saturday. Get extra amusement from our fabulous Korean Hour. My Ex and the Neighbour. Saturday afternoon at 5:30. Current events. Controversial issues. In-depth accounts of the latest news and happenings that impact us all. Get to the heart of the matter. Get the inside story. Friday night at 8. Cliff diving. Dangerous but fantastic.
It's an odd feeling up there, but I've never been scared of heights. Everything's fine.
All I wear is regular swimming trunks. Sometimes I wear 2 pairs, but usually just one, and it doesn't have anything else inside it.
Chasing for gold. Bearing the extreme cold.